Hi, I'm Christiane, integrative dietitian and founder of Mint Nutrition. Today we're going to do a cook with me class. So the whole concept behind this is that you'll have a grocery list, you'll have recipes, I'll show you through all the steps, but it'll be a quick video so you can watch it ahead of time, pause it, cook with me, and I'll explain the steps on the way and show you how to do everything. Today we're going to make stuffing. It's going to be a leek sausage and apple stuffing, which is super easy to do. You can have it anytime during the year, not only just at Thanksgiving, but sometimes we'll do it for food prep on Sundays and just have it with roasted vegetables. So what I always try to do is set everything up first before we start cooking. So what I want to do is set up a cutting board, so an easy little cutting board, and on the counter, one of my little tips and tricks that I do all the time is put a wet paper towel underneath. This will help prevent your cutting board from sliding everywhere. So I have my knives, I've got my apples, so I've got a bunch of apples, and I've got an onion, some celery, leeks, my herb stuffing, so cheat, you can use your own if you want to make your own croutons and bread, if you have leftover bread, but this is a really easy dish. I've got chicken stock, so we got a little container of chicken stock. This is my little cheat to add some additional flavors. This is like a little trick that I do, and I'll talk to you about that. And then I actually like to use regular sausage. If you don't use regular sausage and use turkey sausage, we'll have to use a little bit of olive oil or butter or anything that you cook with. You can do that. So prefer either one of those to use, and then we'll get started. So I'm going to show you how to prep each one of these, and then I'll have you pause it and you can prep that yourself. And then we'll start back up there again. So I start with the green apple. So you can wash everything ahead of time. You can use a peeler. I like to just peel my apples with a knife. This is my chef days. You peel your apple. You're gonna cut your onions, you're gonna cut your leeks, clean your leeks, because your leeks can be like super, super dirty. So we'll talk about that on how to quickly and easily clean those. You can leave the skins on if you want to, but I kind of like it without. As we're doing the stuffing, it sort of gets nice and soft when you cook it. So you're gonna wanna cut your apple. I kind of cheat and cut off 4 sides and then just toss that. It makes it super simple. And we're gonna want nice little cubes, so you can cut that in half. See these nice little cubes? So that's what we're gonna want for our apple. If there's a little bit of skin on there, that's okay. Or if you're really particular, you can take it all off. So we'll cut 4 of those apples that way. And with our celery, we just have a couple stalks here. That was not a good looking one. We're gonna cut the ends off. We're gonna wanna make sure that there's no dirt on there, so rinsing those easily. We're gonna use about 5 stalks of celery, but I'm gonna show you how to cut it because you're gonna pause and do this on your own. So cut it down the middle. You want it to be a little bit smaller, so when we do cook this on the stove, they're not super crunchy. So you're gonna wanna keep those relatively small. See how small those are? They're like little tiny pieces. I'm all about speed, so you can always cut that up. Do it faster. If you wanna put this in a food processor, you could do that too and chop it up. That's even faster if you have like no time. Just watch your fingers. So you'll do that with about 5 stalks of celery here. Let me show you the leeks. These get really dirty. So what I do is I actually cut the tops off. So you want probably just about there, and then you cut the end off. And leeks have a lot of dirt on the inside. So I'll take, just like onions or green onions, you take that outer layer if it's not looking so clean, and you peel that off there. And then I actually cut my leek straight down the middle like that. You can cut this and then rinse it. See, look at all that dirt. That's not a lot of fun dirt. So in order to make it faster, I like to cut my leek. So I'm gonna move this aside so I don't get dirt all over my other vegetables. And we're gonna slice the leeks like that. These get nice and soft. They have a very mild onion flavor. And I like to use a lot of aromatics like celery, leeks, onions, because that'll give you really good flavor in your stuffing. So we're gonna slice it just like that. And we're gonna put it in a strainer. And we're gonna rinse them all off really good so we can get all the dirt out. So that's probably the fastest way to do it. If you see really, really dirty ones, or brown, you can just set those aside. So we'll do that with 2 leeks, and we'll rinse those off. So we'll put those in a nice little colander here. We'll get that out of the way, and we'll rinse that off really, really good, making sure all the dirt's out of there. So we'll do that. And then we're gonna we're gonna actually cut up an onion. So I always cut this end off and then leave that one there and cut it in half with the skin on. This will help prevent it from sliding. So we just slide back the top layer, just like that. Super, super easy. You can leave that right on there because we're gonna cut this off and throw it away. So we want this same as the celery, you want it nice and small because we wanna be able to cook that through. So that the onions are soft and not crunchy when you're cooking them. So you cut it just like that and then you go right down the middle. Watch your fingers. And then you're going to get my tray in the way. So as you can see here, we got small, fine little onions here. So we're gonna do that with one onion. So go ahead and prep these veggies and we'll be back. So now that we have everything chopped up, this is what it looks like. I just put it all in the same bowl because we're gonna cook it all together anyway. So I keep it in a nice big bowl. I come over and get my large skillet. So we'll turn that on, medium heat. And then we'll take our sausage, cut that open, and we're gonna cook the sausage in the pan first. So if you have just a stainless steel non-stick and not a non-stick pan, you might wanna add a little bit of oil so it's not as sticky. But in this case, it's a non-stick pan, so we're gonna cook that. And we're gonna put that in the pan and brown that nicely. So go ahead and do that now. Okay, I have my sausage cooking here. So I cooked it nice and brown, not burnt, so it's just got a nice little color on that into little pieces. And you see all the fat on the bottom, so you've got enough in there. But of course, if you want to add more, go ahead. You want to make sure that you're going to cook out everything else. So I'm going to add the leeks, the celery, the onions, all in here. And I'm going to want to cook that for a couple minutes. At least 5 to 7 minutes, because if you're not going to bake this and reheat it, we want to make sure that all of these vegetables in here and the apples as well are cooked nicely. So we don't want to blacken them, we don't want to brown them too much, but you want to cook them on, again, on medium heat. So anytime if you want to saute or brown an item, leave it alone, don't touch it. Put it in there, don't touch it. And then in a minute or so, you're going to mix it up again so everything gets cooked in. You could cover it, you know, this one's pretty deep, so you could cover that as well, but we're not. We're actually we're gonna saute this for a little bit. So pause it, cook it for about 5 to 7 minutes until you start seeing the onions a little bit more transparent and softer on some of the vegetables and the apples as well. Okay, so I had mine covered for a little bit. So this is what it looks like. It's nice and soft. So we're gonna add the chicken stock. You see how the leeks and the onions are translucent, you can kind of see through them. So we're gonna bring this whole entire chicken stock box to a boil. And then I'm gonna add my little cheat. And the reason why I do that is it gives it a good background flavor, but this is basically very, very reduced chicken stock here. So you only need like a teaspoon of it. So we're gonna just put a little bit in here and let that come to a boil. We don't have to add salt because between the salt, the stock, the better than bouillon, our stuffing, you've got enough seasonings and everything. So we're just gonna bring this up to a boil, and this is gonna cook the celery really good. As you can see, the apples are cooked as well, and the leeks are, so you want it to be relatively soft. And then we'll let that cook for about a couple minutes, about 4 minutes, 5 minutes, until it has a nice little simmer, and then I'll show you next steps. So now it's simmering, and it's doing pretty well. Hope you're doing well in your kitchen. And we're gonna use the stuffing and put that in there. So tear off just the corner. You might want to mix that. I'm just going to throw it all in. It'll be easy that way. These are pretty dry, so that's why we use a lot of the chicken stock so that it coats right in there. And I actually like to cook it for a few minutes in the pan so it gets a little brown on the bottom. So this will soak in really nice. And then what we'll do is we'll put it in a roasting pan where you can go ahead and roast it in the oven if you want to do something like that. Or if you're going to, you know, just pop it in there in a container for the fridge, you could do that as well if you're going to eat it at a different time, because these types of things are really good and they taste better almost the next day. Once I think all the flavors start to marinate, it's super, super easy. So see how that's all soaked in? So now I'm just going to let it sit there for a minute. Let it cook for a couple minutes. I kind of like to brown that as that's all soaking in, and then I'll scrape the bottom and do that a couple times, and then we'll pop that right into the container, and you can pop it in the oven if you want to crisp the top of it, or if you want to just heat it up and keep it warm, you could do that as well, or cool it and put it in the fridge. I like to serve this with roasted vegetables or a big salad. Obviously, this is a great dish for Thanksgiving dinner as well, so you can have that with leftovers with your turkey sandwiches. Super easy. I put it in a roasting pan. You can roast this. If you do roast this, just note that it's gonna really dry it out, which is not a bad thing if you're having gravy and turkey and everything else. If you want it as a regular meal, you can put that under the broil if you want to crisp it up, or just cover this, let this cool, cover it, and put it in the fridge. Enjoy.